Welcome to the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Today, I'm so excited to have with us Dan Rowe. I want to get your title just right. He's the president and CEO of Visit Panama City Beach and the executive director of Bay County's Tourist Development Council.
Got it right.
And in some ways, that means that you are a leader and an influencer, maybe even in charge of all things marketing relative to Panama City Beach. Is that close?
Well, from the tourism perspective, I mean, the city is independent of us, and but I mean, my job is to invite folks, to come to Bay County, to enjoy themselves, send money, go home, come back and visit us again.
Absolutely, absolutely. By way of introduction, you're married to Laurie?
Yeah, my wife, Laurie, and I have been married since early 2002.
Okay.
And I have a 29-year-old daughter who lives in Savannah, Georgia.
Awesome. Now you are a graduate of Colorado State University.
I am, or am.
And you have been in Bay County in this role the last 14 years.
14 years. I moved here for the job. I've spent my entire life in the tourism industry. My dad was a National Park Service ranger, so I grew up on national parks across the country, which is something I just absolutely loved, which drove me to Colorado State. But then I realized that you could have more fun working in the resort business than on remote national parks. So I took that path, and about 2000 had a major shift in getting away from the resort business into destination marketing, and I love it even more than I did working for resorts. I mean, so destination marketing is my personal passion.
Awesome. Prior to being here, you were involved in the state of Georgia as essentially the director over, was it tourism? Is that what you'd call it?
Yeah, I was the deputy commissioner for the Georgia Department of Economic Development, responsible for marketing Georgia as a tourist destination.
Okay.
So the same role in Florida is done by Visit Florida.
Right.
And so, and that was a lot of fun marketing a state. I mean, I traveled the world, really just telling people how wonderful the state of Georgia was. But I'm glad I'm here.
Well, and nowadays, for these last 14 years, you've been telling the people of the state of Georgia how wonderful it is to come vacation at Panama City Beach.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
and it's not hard sell.
I got in trouble once when I was with the state of Georgia because I made a comment in an interview where I said, the number one reason why some people come to the state of Georgia is because we're in the way. We're between where they are and where they want to be. And I was talking about everybody from, the northern and Midwestern states going to Florida.
Yep.
And then I was talking about all the people in Florida going up to Highlands, North Carolina. I didn't go over very well.
Yep.
But I mean, Georgia's a wonderful place, and I have friends there, and I love my time there. But this is more me.
Well, speaking of, let's dig into it. Speaking of the role that you're in, we have we're going to talk towards the end about future and where things are and some great things. So there's some really good news on that side of it. But part of people that are listeners and viewers knowing about a little bit of the history about the place that we are. We got new people to town, but also there's some folks that are not really familiar of just how resilient we've been as a community. In May, I got the privilege of listening to you give a presentation at the Bay County Chamber of Commerce First Friday event. And I was mesmerized because I knew part of the journey, but I didn't know all of it. And I actually wrote it down, but you made this statement about, I'm gonna paraphrase your quote, but essentially that we are one of the most resilient places in the country, and a city that has experienced perhaps more things that would get in our way or hold us back than any other community in America.
And I fully stand behind that. I mean, you think about, nationally, we lived through the Great Recession, but our community was very much leveraged with all the new condo development. So we were more exposed than a lot of folks were. And then Deepwater Horizon oil spill. I mean, that was concentrated on the Gulf Coast. And then, as a community, we broke away, rightfully so, from a major market segment, and it was difficult economically to move away from college spring break. It was the right thing to do, but at the time, that was a hard decision for the community to make. I mean, that's where we first met.
It is.
And then you get into Hurricane Michael, the third strongest storm to hit the continental United States, and it was concentrated here. And now we're dealing with the pandemic. And through each and every one of those turns, this community has weathered the storm and has come out stronger.
Right. Well, and to your credit, let me give you a star here, because the fact is that to be in the role that you're in of any time, probably in the history of Bay County, you picked probably the hardest. Now, a lot of us, I guess, are in that role. If you say what's it like to be a preacher through a hurricane and a pandemic, et cetera. But that being said, we have not just survived it, we're excelling. If I were to just pick one little snippet that may be one of my favorites of how we've been resilient, I think you'd express to me we're one of the few communities that made the pivot away from college spring break, that did not go through a local recession.
That's the truth. As I have reviewed all of the information from Fort Lauderdale and from Daytona Beach, their economies flatlined for several years afterwards.
Right.
Here, because we were focused on how do we build business, how do we increase year-round visitation, so there's not as many peaks and valleys. It allowed us to be able to shift away from the month of March. It was catastrophic. I mean, we lost 41% of our revenue in that month of March.
Yeah.
But for the year, our revenues were down less than 0.7%. The next year, we got a lot of that March business back by doing events and attracting families and people who weren't interested in coming here as a college spring break destination. And we had another record-breaking year that following year. So we have been able to reset the bar. And I think most people are thrilled that, the beach is beyond that. I mean, spring break started as an economic development strategy. Back in the day when it started, I mean, It was, beach towns were, vibrant from Memorial Day through Labor Day. And then to be able to pay the bills and, keep the lights on and be able to pay the mortgage payments, March business, that influx of cash was so critically important at the time.
Right.
And it morphed into other things. But originally, I mean, it was truly about how do I keep my business open? But now we have so much more year-round visitation. So we're not dependent upon that one segment to be able to carry us. And I think that Bay County is in a much better place because of that.
I am so excited to see the growth, even through all these challenges since that time. And I think that all of the community together has done a great job of diversifying the economy. I think what they have done with the sports facilities that we have are incredible. People tell me about coming to Panama City to play in the World Series for whatever ball team. And I'm like, which week?
Yeah.
Because we do a World Series every week down here. and it's a great thing in a lot of different ways. But that has not stopped. I think that one of the things that, as we talk about the good news that I want people to hear, not only and I guess I'm kind of glazing over it in a sense because there's so much to talk about, but from my own perspective, and if I'm off on this, tell me, after the hurricane I guess this big geographical thing, this side of the bridge, right? So we're on the city side as a church here in Lynn Haven. We experienced a lot more damage than much of what happened on the other side. But I was able to look at that from a 30,000 foot view and say, look, God somehow spared our economic engine. And it allowed us to continue to drive the economic parameters that were required in order to rebuild. And so I see that as one of the things that I see it as a God thing, but he allowed those on the beach to drive it. Is that fair?
Well, it is. But I even have a little bit, it's even a deeper conversation than that. I mean, the beach was the lifeboat for Bay County.
Yes.
With all those displaced residents, and the beach, to be able to house them while they're rebuilding their homes and their lives was incredibly important. And we had to get federal rules changed to do that. There is some FEMA programs that only allowed people to get reimbursement in the temporary shelter assistance for hotel rooms.
Right.
Well, we have condos. And so, the Governor Scott, Jimmy Petronas, who was the CFO at the time, really focused on let's get FEMA to change their rules so that they can reimburse folks for staying in condos, because that's what we had. That was where our greatest need was.
Right.
And so we were able to house just multitudes of families on the beach while they rebuilt their lives during a time of year where there typically wasn't demand.
Yep.
And so being that lifeboat allowed people to get their feet back underneath them and to be able to look forward to the future. I mean, it was still devastating. I know, I mean, in the young people in Bay County suffer greatly, the school-age kids, and we can still do better the next time. But the beach did help, bring the community together because we were that place where people could come and lay their head down.
Well, and I'm going to date this with my comment, but it's good news, and I want to just say it out loud. We're in the middle of a playoff run with some of those kids that these last 2 years on that football team at Mosley have dealt with tremendous adversity, and our community is able to see a group of kids that have more resilience than they would have otherwise. At the same time, the volleyball team is in the middle of a state run and have been up near that pinnacle many times. I literally believe we're going to see a group of kids, a whole generation of kids, like the World War II generation before us, maybe in many ways not the same, but different than most of our generation experienced, that resilience this created from one challenge after another, right?
Well, and we have the kids on the other side of the bridge. I mean, we have the Arnold soccer teams, both the girls and the boys. I mean, their
weightlifting team's done a great job too.
And then their wrestling team. I mean, it's just the quality of the athletics.
Bayhigh's got a national championship cheerleading team too. I mean, it's really good.
It is. I mean, that shows the resiliency of kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. And I have a lot of people who are younger than me on my staff, and people ask, "Oh my God, the younger generations!" I love them, because their work ethic and the way that they drive innovation is that keeps you going, keeps us moving forward. And having those young people, and young people's everybody 58 years old and young, that will help us continue to grow.
Right. Well, as we dive into the pandemic, that's also been a challenge.
It's
somehow you've managed to balance local community as well as those that want to come and visit.
Well, and it's important, because we live here. I mean, during Hurricane Michael, I live in town. I mean, I live a block off of Beach Drive, and I just settled with my insurance company about 6 weeks ago, so I know the impacts of that storm. But you get to the point that during the pandemic, we live here, we're part of this. But we know that our job is to help drive our economy because there's businesses and people's livelihoods that are important.
Right.
I mean, it's families.
Mm-hmm.
It's families being able to live the American dream. And so we have to get to the point where we're inviting people to come into our home, into our community, and to have fun, because it's that experience that's here is really what we're selling. And so during the pandemic, we had to make sure that anybody we've invited to the community, that they were playing by the rules, and they weren't being reckless. And we were encouraging them to wear a mask, to socially distance, to do all the things that the CDC says, just so we can all get along.
Right.
And we continue to do that. I mean, but right after, we ran a lot of outdoor billboards that were talking about closed beaches but open hearts. I mean, we were really trying to send a message that we feel this, and their better days are in front of us. I mean, because our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are in the Declaration of Independence. And that is part of that American spirit that we will never be, downtrodden for long. We'll reconnect. We'll figure it out, but we'll move forward, and we'll remember the joy and the hope.
Yep.
And I think the pandemic was, we're still in the middle of it.
We are.
But we know that there's something on the other side.
Well, and being able to promote the Real Fun Beach during a time when people need some fun. Because people have had a lot of stressors.
It is. Because it just doesn't end.
No.
And it's invisible. You don't know, if you're going to contract it and how bad it's going to be, because some people, they sneeze twice and they're done, and others, lose their lives. So it's hard. But coming to a beach where you're able to put your feet in the sand and just watch the sunset, really helps you reconnect with what's important to you. and having family around is important. And I think that's why we've been successful.
Right. I think that as we look at where we are in our community relative to other communities, even in the state of Florida, but just nationally in particular, in your May presentation, you said we were on pace to set records this year in spite of all of it. How are we sitting now towards the end of the fourth quarter?
Our fiscal year ends September the 30th. We were up about 50% over our best year ever.
I know you're trying to pick which number to give because there's so many.
It's huge numbers. But what that shows is people have demand for our product. They want to be where we live.
Did you said up 50% of the best year ever? Did
Correct.
I say that right?
Yes.
So the best year we've ever had historically, we were half again more?
Correct. Yeah, typically the tourist development tax collections is one of our barometers of spend. And, after Hurricane Michael, we ended up getting a lot of extra money that year just because of.
Are you sure about those numbers? Because there was a pandemic this year.
Yes. In the spring.
Wow.
In the spring of this year, we were up 80 to 90% over where we were prior to the pandemic. In the summertime, we were up 50% over where we were. And in the summer, we had the same number of visitors here. They were just spending a lot more money because the demand for our product was so high because they love the environment. They love the experience.
Right.
They love what we have and how, in our part of it.
You've talked, again, I'm referring back to that incredible presentation, but you talked about the resiliency of Bay County, how much you love the resiliency of this community, and that's going to play really well because it's going to play well because it's true. My listeners, the viewers, the reality in Bay County, we think we can do anything because we're going to get together on it, we're going to figure it out, and we will get through it. But you also complimented the visitors that come here and how resilient they have been through all these things, not to give up on us. And we saw that through the pandemic. I assumed that they were all driving here, like we're a drive-to destination and all, it's all this stuff that I learned a few years ago. And then this article came out about our airport being the fourth fastest growing airport in the country. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're flying here too?
One of the things, and you talk about that, people should never bet against Bay County.
Nope.
And you think about Pier Park. When Pier Park opened, nobody thought it was going to. A lot of people said, it'll never work. It'll never work. They'll be shuttered. They'll be closed. And they've always run a 90+%, occupancy rate on their tenant space. You think about the airport, in the early days that people were so against it. It'll never work. It'll never work. And we have seen it continue to grow and to prosper. But even with all of that growth, there's still, arriving by car is the number one way people get here. And we always want it to be that way. Because if you're solely dependent on an airplane and you're flying 2 hours, today you can see an ad for, another destination and you say, well, let's just go there. But if you're arriving by car, you can gain increased loyalty because they're saying, let's go to the beach this weekend. It's no question where I can find a cheap, air flight to.
Yeah.
They're coming here.
Well, I don't know what's right or not right for me to say on air, but I think it helps Bay County. We have some visitors that come every year from Houston, Texas, and some of them are college students. And as we were talking to them, they said, look, no question, we've had people move here from Texas that are from the Galveston area, and they're like, there's no question the beaches here are way better than the beaches there. And so if I were to give you, and you probably already knew this, but one of my previous podcasts, I interviewed Chuck Purdue, who's a tax collector. So if people, and there's a bunch of them that are moving here from other states with valid driver's licenses, and I'm like, okay, these are job carrying kind of people, right? But the number one state's Alabama, Georgia after that, and Texas not far behind. There are some northern states, but I almost, without knowing the market research, would believe that the reason people are moving from Alabama and Georgia in large part are because they're so loyal to this area. And given an opportunity to move anywhere, they're gonna come.
Well, it's the lifestyle, it's the quality of life. They want to live, here because they know what it's like. The Gulf is wonderful. The bay, the beaches, the environment, everything here
Yeah.
And then the other benefit we have is because we're a pro-business state, we don't have an income tax, and that just helps keep the the cost of living is reasonable. And if you can live in traffic all the time or come to the beach, you're going to come to the beach.
Between not having an income tax, the idea that our governor has been as free and good towards businesses as he's been, and then on top of that, from what I'm being told, all the counties in the state of Florida, we're like number 7 at the bottom as far as how high the taxes are.
Yeah, and the county commission has done. Our county commission doesn't get they don't get the credit that they deserve. And this goes back since the whole time I've been here. It has been a steady leadership at the county. They've always kept taxes low, and just to make sure that they're providing it. But even in the times of crisis and tragedy, they're focused on how do we get through this and how do we, gain strength from it. And so I can't say enough good things about the leadership that we have locally.
Can I make a shameless pitch to get folks that are coming in for the holidays, that may be coming to visit family or may just be listening that are in Alabama and Georgia? One of the unique things that you guys do with your digital marketing is the Chasing the Sun television show.
Correct.
That is on Discovery Channel. I think it's on Saturdays. Is that right?
7:30 Central.
We'll have a link in the show notes for that. My friend Justin Leak is one of the guys on that show.
Justin is not one of the guys on the show. Justin is our on-air talent who carries the show.
Thank you. Well, I texted him knowing I was going to be on here today, and I said, let me ask you something. This is a very unique piece that runs on a national level that showcases the world-class nature of our fishery here locally. Do you guys fish all year? Are the charter boat captains open? What are they after? He told me it's his favorite time of year in the wintertime to sight fish for reds on the flats. He told me that if it's a flat day and sometimes the winds die down and it's really calm, you can go out offshore and you can chase down the grouper and the vermilion snapper. And he even said on a windy day, you can catch these bull reds. If people listening are not sure, I like fishing, but if you're not sure what a bull red is, they're really big. My point being, this is a great time of year when it's probably not as crowded to have those family members that come down that need something to do to give you a break for a few hours. You need to send the boys out or the part of the family that wants to go deep sea fishing, because our charter boat captains would love to have some of that going on.
Yeah, our fishery is second to none. And it's the variety of whether it's, inshore, nearshore, offshore. There's you can fish all the time. And the show is really designed to showcase that, but also it's the whole Panama City Beach Bay County vibe, what it's like to live here, that coastal lifestyle. It's been going on about 5 years now, and it is really just shows us in such a good light, and it introduces us to audiences that may not see our regular advertising campaigns. So, again, it's one of those non-traditional ways that we can tell our story. And we have quite a story to tell.
Well, we talk about on this show, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship, and I've loved seeing it in some ways with local government and how we're learning to do new things, how we're getting better in the future. I love seeing it in the marketing side. And if I look at, like in my world, like the church, I'm a pastor. What in the world am I doing a podcast, right? I'm on social media. What is all that? Well, these 14 years, things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
And they changed a lot on the marketing side. You talked about your young team. You've got to have people that are continuing to think forward about where it's headed. Wayne Gretzky used to say, they asked him why he was so great. He's a hockey player. Right. You probably have heard of hockey players, but he'd say, I skate to where the puck is headed, not to where the puck is.
Yeah.
That's what you're having to do.
Well, and we do a good job of it. And, my job, is to connect dots. I have probably one of the best teams working with me of any destination marketing organization in the country. And the people that are employed with the TDC right now all are passionate. And they love what they do. They love doing it here. And so they're just out there every day trying to figure out what else can we do. And that's why a lot of the things you see around, were ideas that bubbled up
Right.
In my office. And the beach ball drop was the brainchild of our vice president of sports marketing. And we've also added Beach Home for the Holidays and the Pirates Festival and then Chasing the Sun. I mean, all of the innovation that has come around is because the TDC, our board, has really focused to say, we need to continue to tell our story in a positive ways. Go do it.
Well, when it came time for us to make a decision this summer about whether to go for a vacation or not, we ended up going to North Carolina, and the pandemic was such that it was in a pretty good state. But I didn't want to leave the state of Florida, and so if there are folks that are listening and thinking, I'm not sure I want to leave this time. I think I just want to stay home this Christmas. There may be people that are wanting to travel down here. What is there to do in Panama City Beach? If they have not heard about the ball drop, there's actually two of those, because families love coming here. Real fun beach. I'm going to say it again. If they have children and they want to keep those preschoolers on schedule, or elementary kids, they can come and do like an 8:00 drop out there. And there's all kind of goodies for them, and then they put the kids in bed.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we're focused on is really trying to family friendly is overused, but we have the most family friendly New Year's Eve celebration of them all, because the 8:00 ball drop with the 10,000 inflated beach balls is just too much fun. But then we do let the kids go home, get in bed, and the revelers come out, and it's about creating those family traditions.
Yeah, because
every kid remembers things from when they were young. And those things are so important to them. And it's not just going to a beach, it's creating that tradition, and just the Thanksgiving, is another one. I know that we just got through with Beach Home for the Holidays, which for us is creating a new tradition. Instead of piling into your in-laws' house or your grandparents' house, come to the beach and spread out. So it allows us to get that important milestones travel from families time and time again. So when they think of going, they're not considering other places. They come here.
Well, and I hate to use our podcast to talk to these viewers personally, but we're at a time right now in the life of our nation and our country that this could be a pretty emotional Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. And as we get to these pivotal holidays where there's a lot that weighs on us. There's a lot of things that people could be conflicted about, right? And rather than sitting at home and worrying about politics or being concerned about who's not there or what we wish it would be, I'm encouraging, and I want our viewers to hear it. I want them go do something. Go fishing. Go to a restaurant. Have a time to go to the ball drop. These are all productive things that local community members can be about. And we've got new people to our community that don't know anything about this stuff. And it's a great, rich flavor that they'll experience here.
It is. I mean, and that's part of it. It's just reconnecting.
Yes.
I think reconnecting with those things that are important to you helps all of us get through the day and to realize our best days are still in front of us.
Speaking of the best days ahead, we like to say it around here. We say the best is yet to come, and we believe it's true. I believe it's true spiritually speaking. I also think it's true in Bay County. Couple of neat things. There's recently been an announcement about an indoor sports complex, sports center. Tell me about it.
The TDC opened our sports park in 2019, the outdoor sports park, 13 fields. And even as we were developing that, we always knew, starting back as early as 2008, that there was the demand for an indoor sports center. I mean, the feasibility study said there's the demand here for indoor sports. And so it's been on our radar screen. And and the TDC put us down the path of starting to think through the development of that center about 5 years ago.
Right.
And so we've been working on it ever since. And originally it was going to be 8 courts, basketball courts, 16 volleyball courts, just a large field house kind of design. But then as we went down the path and we realized coming out of Hurricane Michael that the community need was so great that we needed a hardened facility that we could host additional space for our first responders. All the people who came into our local community to say, we need a place for them to be able to come and to to work out of, to feed them, to sleep, let them sleep. I mean, so we needed to change that thinking. The other part that we really learned, I mean, it weighed very heavily on everyone, was when we had to use Arnold High School as a shelter, because that upset families across the district, because now the young kids were going to school in the early morning hours, the older kids going in the afternoon, evening hours, and it was hard for parents to rebuild their lives but their jobs because of all the things they were doing. And so we realized that if we created a hardened place where we could get kids back into school, into classrooms quicker, that this sports center could fulfill that need.
Well, and those that may not be as familiar with it, after the hurricane, Arnold was opened up as a shelter, rightly so. We were doing whatever we could. It was a rough time. And many of those people that were in that shelter didn't have any place to go. Yeah. And so to get them out and get the kids back into school created all kinds of messes. The same with the EOC. We did a phenomenal job considering, but we've evaluated a bunch since then. And now we're in a position to make some proactive moves headed forward. When you talk about hurricane hardened, you're talking about like up to 200 mile an hour winds.
200 mile an hour winds. And so the indoor sports center will have a facility, an alternate emergency operations facility, a hardened room, where people, but it'll also be large enough with a commercial kitchen that will be able to do a lot of, hosting of people before, during, and after, primarily after the storm. But as we go down the road and the state of Florida did the Hurricane Michael recovery plan, this project was in that plan. And so we're working through the final steps with FEMA to secure about $14 million to go to the construction of the facility. Right. But one of the other things that, as we were going down this path and we're continuing to look at unmet community needs, last December, the U.S. Navy announced the Gulf Coast Tech Bridge. And there's tech bridges across the country, which are places where research and development focused, technology focused areas where they can get some of the Navy's, the best and the brightest that are inside the fence, and connect them to the private sector outside the fence to be able to really speed up technologies being built and really helping, with innovation. For us, a lot of it's around autonomous vehicles, I think. And so they need a place where they can host up to 200 researchers in a room and have a classified briefing. That does not exist in Bay County. But our alternate emergency operations center can be used for that purpose. So on gray sky days, when there's a storm in the Gulf, it's for the emergency operations center. Blue sky days, we can use it for help with our technology development, because there's so much positive development on the innovation standpoint that high tech is part of our future. I've
been around long enough and known enough locals that have come through Bay County, born here, raised here, gotten their engineering degree, and gone to work at the Navy research facility, if you will, Naval Systems. What was the official? Naval Air Station, I believe.
It's Naval Support.
I'm messing this up.
Naval Support Activity is the base.
There's several thousand employees out there.
There's more researchers than there are sailors. Right. And it is. I think there's 960 PhDs that work at the Navy base.
These are super brilliant guys. They work. When you say autonomous, you're basically talking about robotic vehicles. Mm-hmm. And they're used for defense. These guys travel all over the world in this research, and you're actually talking about providing a place where that research can be combined outside the secure space, and our locals will find opportunities down the road to use innovation and entrepreneurship in the business sector because of that, right?
Yeah, and I think and it'll help defense contractors locate here. I mean, because we have a very strong, robust base of defense contractors now, and that'll continue to grow. But it's all those innovation jobs. I mean, if you want to talk about the future, you create it by innovation, and I think this helps expand the strength of Bay County's foundation, and it makes it better for all of us. And we're thrilled that we may be able to pull that use into this facility to really help strengthen it, and then it also gives us other funding sources so that at the end of the day, that the project stops being an idea and comes out of the ground.
Well, families locally are already benefiting tremendously. If they wondered how do they benefit from all this tourism and development, the reality is that if they've got children or grandchildren that play any of the athletic sports that are travel ball, they don't have to travel as far to do that. Parents and grandparents can watch them, family members can watch them, friends can watch just by going and partaking what's already here. The athletic venues that you describe, basketball is not a summertime sport.
No,
that's not an accident, is it?
And cheerleading and volleyball and pickleball. I mean, there's so much of it that goes on. And right now, at the sports park, I mean, we're hosting Bayhaven. We have a lot of the football teams have practice there. I mean, there's a lot of local play because, I mean, it's a great facility. And, and again, we're part of the community. And so it's bringing it all together.
Well, and it sounds like you're being intentional to bring in sectors that are not just athletic in the science and technology, which is incredible, but also sports that would tend towards maybe the non-shoulder seasons, which is one of our greatest potential places to grow as a community as far as visitors, which is during the spring and the fall, right?
Right. Spring, fall, and winter that's the real focus of both the outdoor sports park and the indoor sports center, is just to continue to lift the non-summer months. I
think you told me too that one of the other advantages of that facility is it can be multi-used with the Gary Walsingham Elementary School.
Well, this is one of the great partnerships. I mean, because we've developed a very close relationship with Bay District Schools and the St. Joe Company as we put this project together. But we're going to locate the indoor sports center where 2 of the courts are going to be a joint use gymnasium with the Walsingham Academy. What that means is when the Walsingham Academy, ultimately it's designed, I think, to be a K-8 school, so all the way up through middle school, that when the district needs to build a gymnasium, that gym will already be there, which will save the residents of Bay County millions of dollars that they don't have to pay through the construction costs, that those dollars that are being invested in the school district can go to other places. And so that partnership does help us, be good stewards of the public's money.
Right. I want to change gears and talk about beach renourishment.
Okay.
I read an article, did a little research. There's 4 main times in the last significant period of years, so several decades, that they have done beach renourishment. They were bigger projects. They've become smaller projects. The last one in 2017, which means 2018 we had Hurricane Michael, then we've had Hurricane Sally.
Yes.
And so it's time for another one of those. We're in the middle of one, right?
Correct. Yeah, we are pumping just about 3 million cubic yards of sand on the beach.
You said that without a hesitation.
And but I may be off by about 400,000 cubic yards, but that's neither here nor there. It's a big project.
It sounds like it.
On the west end of the beach and the east end of the beach. And this project is being funded entirely by the Corps of Engineers. So the TDC sets aside a portion of our tourism.
Wait a minute, we're not paying for that?
Well, we are as the citizens of the United States,
but not as citizens of Bay County.
No, citizens of Bay County. I mean,
so New York's paying as much as me.
Absolutely.
All right. Just
absolutely.
To be clear.
And
I like it.
We're the only beach in Northwest Florida that has a federal partner.
That's awesome.
And so we're able to renourish the beach, and then we were able to work with the state park system, St. Andrews State Park.
Yep.
And Jay Trumbull, Representative Trumbull, Representative Schoaf from Gulf County were also very instrumental in helping us get funding to be able to renourish the Gulf side of St. Andrews State Park. And it is typically outside of our project area.
Right.
But this year, we'll be able to get the state funds and get them to the Corps to be able to add that extra mile of sand, which is the first time that's been renourished, which if you go out to the park now, I mean, it's 30-foot cliffs. I mean,
right.
And so it will be a game changer for the park. And we're also assisting our friends in Mexico Beach. We're doing a lot of the design permitting for a project there that the state and the federal officials have come up with probably about $14 million to do that. So in the next couple of years, all of our beaches will be renourished, and it's tourism benefits from it, but it's really the protection of life and property is the reason you do it, to make us more resilient in storm events. And so I'm thrilled that we have such a robust program here, and we have such good relationships with the state and federal officials, because Bay County benefits from it.
Well, that's great news. And from what I guess clarity, it sounds like that's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It really from the state park westward. And then the other two areas you mentioned, San Andrews State Park and Mexico Beach, are projects that are slated for the next year.
Well, San Andrews State Park will be this spring.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're actively building the east and west reaches of Panama City Beach right now. We'll build the state park come spring, and then Mexico Beach will hopefully be a year.
It's a totally separate thing, but just as candy for some that are listening for some more good news or some upgrades coming to San Andrews State Park, to the campground, etc. It needed something since the hurricane as well. So that's great. That is a very popular park.
It is one of the best in the state park system. I mean, it's an award-winning park, and it took the brunt of Michael as it was coming to shore, and rebuilding all the campsites and really being able to renourish the beach there. I mean, it's a gem that we just need to treasure. In
a time that good news is hard to come by, we have shared an awful lot of it today in this time that we've had together, honestly, over a 14-year period where Bay County has been resilient through the ups and the downs. We've had good leadership, yes, from the county level, but also with people like you that have been in a very strategic role. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today and to share some good news. And from your perspective, are the best days in front of us in Bay County and Panama City Beach?
Absolutely. I mean, we have been challenged in the past. We're challenged now, but the sun always rises. And we just have to remember that. And as long as we're here, I mean, we are in a great place.
We're practicing this idea this fall of being thankful and being hopeful. We have reason for both through just a few of the reasons that we've heard today. Thank you so much, Dan, for being
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Please help us share this good news and change the conversation by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast.